Hello, BookTube. So, this is my subscribers only um, 38th birthday live stream. I decided on what I want to talk about in this live stream, and it's ranking the plausibility of all six of the alternate history novels that I have. Now, I have to talk quietly because I am in a hotel room. Um, the family thought it was a good idea to spend a few days out here in the city to celebrate my birthday. And yeah, by the way, also subscribers only, and it's on slow mode as an extra layer of protection to protect me against spam. So apologies for the restrictions, but I had no choice. Um, and so let's begin. But before I rank the plausibility of each book, I think I have to make a few disclaimers before I begin. First of all, just because an alternative history book is implausible, it doesn't mean it's not a good book. It can still be a fascinating story to tell. And so that's not the point. It's just my particular preference for a book to be realistic, to stay into realism despite it being an alternate history. And there's a difference between plausible and probable. Okay? Plausible and probable. Plausible means it can happen, and probable means the likelihood of it happening. So some of these books are not, shall we say, probable, but it still can happen, the plausibility. I didn't bring the books here with me, obviously, because there were six of them, and I came to this hotel room here. You can send a message every 10 seconds, so don't worry. So yeah, it's that's the distinction. So if you disagree with me, you can leave a comment about the plausibility of an alternate history novel. If we're going to stick strictly to plausibility and probability, the most realistic alternate histories, another thing you have to remember is the timeline has to be very short, because the further away you go from the point of departure, the less likely you will, the less accurate you will be at making predictions. The less accurate you will be at predicting what happens next. So if we're going by the strictest definition of plausibility and probability, the most realistic alternate histories that I know of are only 1 year or a few months away from the point of historic departure. One of them is SSGB by Len Deighton, and another one is called Grave Victory by Robert Skimin, I believe his name was. Because one is Nazis winning World War II, and another one is a U.S. the South winning the Civil War. But both of them take place only a few months or a year away from the point of historic departure. So there you go. So yeah, if I wanted only the most realistic books possible, I would only read those two, the most realistic alternate histories. Although there's another book called Hitler's Peace, which takes place during the war, so it's during the point of historic departure. That's another novel I have my eyes on. It's on my wish list. So let's begin. I'm gonna start with the least plausible story to the most plausible. Probable you can probable I'm not gonna go down that path. And I'm not. Oh, and I realize I have written an alternate history novel of my own, So I have written my own alternate history. I'm not going to rank that one because I think it would be a bit presumptuous of me. I'll leave that up to you of making the guess as to what are the odds of the Dutch staying in the East Indies after 1949. Although the point of historic departure in my book, I said, was sometime in 1945. Yes. So let's start. I have the list of the 6 books here, and I have one of the 6 books here. One last thing before I start. One last thing before I start. I did make a video once where I showed you 4 of my alternate history novels that I have in my collection. Now it's gone up to 6. So let's start. So at number 6 is, and remember, just because it's not plausible doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means it's not exactly what I'm looking for. So at number 6 is The Years of Rice and Salt by Kim Stanley Robinson. So what if the bubonic plague, the Black Death, in 1347 wiped out 99% of Europe instead of just 1/3? And then, over the course of hundreds of years, the 3 alternate societies, 3 alternate cultures dominate the world. Hindu culture, Islamic culture, and Chinese culture. Now, this story relied on Buddhist mysticism, so there's some magic there. There's the reincarnation, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and it also stretches a little bit into the future from the point of when this book was published. So, very unlikely, but it's still a very good book. So it's at number 6 because it relies on magic, and it's the longest timeline of all the books I have here. Next up is, and another thing, if the bubonic plague could wipe out 99% of Europe, why Europe? Why is it like so uneven, and the rest of the planet remained the rest of human societies remained relatively intact? The distribution of deaths was shall we say, uneven. So highly unlikely. So that's number 6. Number 5 is Resurrection Day. I have the book here with me. I had it rebound by Brendan Dubois. This is a story. Happy birthday. Yes! Happy birthday to me. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, Vintage Horror Library. So, Resurrection Day. What happens if the Cuban Missile Crisis went hot? If nuclear war between the Soviet Union and the United States happened in 1962? I'm still reading the book though, but I've already made my conclusion about the plausibility of this book. It's a little bit of it's better than The Years of Rice and Salt, but still very, very, very implausible, because as much as they describe a lot of the hellscapes in this book, a lot of Western Europe and much of the United States, most of the world, remains relatively intact. Nation states survive despite having disastrous rates in cancer, and despite millions and millions of people dying in nuclear blasts across Eurasia, and the political borders starting to reform, nation states relatively survive. Now, short of human extinction, nuclear war would make human communities isolated in pockets of habitable lands. So, short of human extinction, nation states would cease to exist. Even if humans were to survive, we would have all these isolated pockets of humans surviving. So, it's very unrealistic that the United States would survive, that Britain would survive, most of Western Europe would survive. But there is like there's massive fallout in East Asia, so there's millions of people dying there, but they don't detail how society has been reshaped there. There's also the implausible idea of the British Empire being reformed. So, well, that's weird. So yeah, but this is a good detective novel over what happened, what caused the war to turn hot. So our hero, his name is what was his name? Carl something. Forgot his last name. He is a journalist who is also a veteran. Uh, Investigates, follows a string of clues as to what happened in 1962, because this takes place 10 years after 1962, in 1972. He follows a string of clues as to what happened, what caused the war to turn hot. And a certain real-life general, who's given a fictional name in this book, General LeMay, is the main bad guy in this book. Anyway, I will, when I finish this book, I'm going to have to make a review on it. Ignore the motorcycles. So next up at number 4 is Joe Steele. What if Joseph Stalin was born in the United States and went on to become president and then ultimately dictator of the United States? It's bizarre. And on top of that, there were several other Russians who moved to the United States who also became high-ranking members of Joe Steele's cabinet. Joe Steele is the Americanized or Englishized version of Joseph Stalin. First of all, the United States would not descend into dictatorship just like that. And on top of that, it raises a whole lot of other questions. Without Stalin, the communist revolution, the October Revolution in Russia would still have happened, but how influential pre-1924 was Stalin in the Bolshevik movement? It doesn't really get into that. They just say Trotsky is in charge of Russia if Stalin wasn't there. It doesn't get into any more detail. So it's really silly, but it's not meant to take him seriously. It's an allegory to Joseph Stalin. Make of that what you will. Joe Steele. But I admit it was a very funny book. It had some great laughs. Anyway, that's Joe Steele. That's at number 4. At number 3 is Empire of Lies by Raymond Khoury. So what if in the 1683, during the Battle of Vienna, the Ottomans win? The Ottomans win the battle for Vienna and then subsequently conquer all of Europe. Now, the book has a time travel element to it, so that already makes it severely weakened. It's at number 3 because, by comparison with these other books, they're all very implausible, but this one also has a very implausible storyline because it uses time travel. But everything that happens afterwards is very plausible if you can swallow the time travel pill, if you know what I mean. So the Ottomans conquer all of Europe, and the Ottoman Empire survives into 2017. But there's actually an explanation for that. because the man responsible for doing the cheat for changing history in 1683, you can see it in my previous videos how that happens. He stays and helps the Ottomans stabilize or get stronger. He helps in running the empire so that it survives for hundreds of years. So, and and the story is very well thought out and detailed. So everything happened after the very, very implausible time travel thing. I was very impressed by, I must say. So it lands at number 3. And before I go to number 2 and number 1, let me just say that I don't have a lot. My alternate history book collection is not that big, so because it's not that big. So if you don't hear titles like The Man in the High Castle, if you don't hear that title, or any other Harry Turtledove novel, it's just because my collection is still very small. But as it grows bigger, I will find more excuses to list my collection, my expanding collection. So there you go. Maybe I'll do this. If my alternate history book collection expands, maybe I'll do this every birthday year. Every time on my birthday, I'll do this video with this same theme. I don't know. Might be interested. Okay. So at number 2, I would say is Dominion by C.J. Sansom. Now, this book, it happens what if the Nazis win World War II? Because the appeasement faction of the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom beats out Winston Churchill, and then subsequently surrenders to Nazi Germany and continues the policy of appeasement. And then the United Kingdom becomes like a satellite state to Nazi Germany. It is very well thought out, and it only takes place 12 years from the point of departure, so it's relatively short. And it's a very well written story. And for the most part, I say it is very plausible in multiple ways. It is a very plausible story, with one major weakness is how quickly the British politicians would become anti-Semitic. A lot of people objected to Enoch Powell being a Nazi sympathizer, or Lord Beaverbrook being a Nazi sympathizer. So it's highly unlikely that these Conservative Party politicians, and some Labour Party as well, would flip to becoming fascist like that. But otherwise, it is a very gripping thriller, I must say. At number 2, Dominion. At number 1, you might have guessed this one, Fatherland by Robert Harris, another Nazis winning World War II one. The point of departure is 22 years removed, actually, from the point of departure. But here has a multiple points of departure. There's a high-ranking Nazi called Heydrich who survived his assassination in Prague in 1942. Yes, 1942. And the Nazis did other strategic things in the war that helped them win. They discovered, or they found out about this the code-breaking machines that the British had. They found one, or that they realized that they were using that machine. So I think they overcame that problem. But it was a series of points of departure. So that's more plausible. That's why it's at number 1. And then the redrawn map of the world. There's actually, and in Fatherland, you'll actually see a map at the front page of the redrawn map of Europe. So that's cool. And then Japan is defeated by the United States when they drop an atomic bomb on Japan. So Japan surrenders, but Nazi Germany wins. So that makes a much more interesting scenario. And it is the most plausible because it's the most well thought out and the most realistic redrawing of the map. Um, it's at number one, but it does have one major weakness. So that's why I was conflicted at putting the Fatherland at number one. Maybe I should have put Dominion at number one. Um, Maybe I should have put Dominion at number one. Because Fatherland has one major weakness in plausibility, and that is Switzerland remains neutral. Hitler wanted to annex Switzerland because Switzerland is a German-speaking country. Swiss German, which is very different from German German, but Hitler had plans for Switzerland. So Switzerland remaining neutral is highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Remaining neutral and independent, but it's a main plot motivator in the story of Fatherland. So, yeah, and the story itself is also very very interesting. So to recap, at number 6 we have The Years of Rice and Salt by Kim Stanley Robinson. At number 5 we have Resurrection Day by Brendan Dubois. At number 4 we have Joe Steele by Harry Turtledove. At number 3 we have Empire of Lies by Raymond Khoury. At number 2 we have Dominion by C.J. Sansom. And at number 1 we have Fatherland by Robert Harris. There you go. If you disagree with me in my rankings of plausibility, you can leave it in the comments. And leave it in the comments. And maybe I'll do this again next year. I'm trying to remember something else that I want to say. And yeah, again, maybe next time I should say, maybe I should make a ranking of probability instead of plausibility. Now I've just done plausibility. Next time I'll do probability, the likely chances of something like that happening. I've not read any of the books you've covered, so I can't tell if I agree with you. I have read 4 books like that. Okay, Peter. That's fine. 1984. What about it? What about 1984? That's not an alternate history. That's a dystopia because that's a story told from a past date, published in 1949, looking forward to 1984. An alternate history, by the strictest definition, is looking at a date behind that's past. So writing a story saying, what if something in the past happened differently, as opposed to what might happen looking forward, even if it's just 1 year in the future, like Sinclair Lewis's It Can't Happen Here. Brave New World. So what? Brave New World. Yeah, dystopias. I'm talking about alternate history here. Okay. That's about it, I think. Fatherland. I'm looking at my list here. Handmaid's. Are you listing something, Peter? Are you making the Handmaid's Tale? Yes. I've read 2 of those 3 books. Yes. Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you for listening in. Most people will be watching this video not live, so you leave a comment later. Okay, I'm going to end the stream now. Oh, but before I do, Lila, meet my daughter. She's the closest thing I'll ever have to a co-host on this channel. You might have seen her in the Tasting Iron Brew short. Come here, girl. Hey, say hi.
Hi.
Okay. It's my daughter, Wila. Okay. I will see you next time. Goodbye.